The broken gate. The rain had not stopped for 2 days. The sky above Los Angeles looked heavy, almost like it had forgotten how to smile. In the middle of the city's forgotten streets, behind a rusty, squeaky metal gate, sat a place no one talked about anymore. The paint had peeled, the walls had cracked, and the sign that once read Sunrise Children's Home now hung sideways, barely holding on. Inside that broken building, 12 children slept in thin beds, shivering under old blankets. The heater had stopped working last winter, and the staff had stopped expecting it to be fixed. Miss Lena, the head caretaker, sat on a wooden stool near the kitchen, counting pennies in her worn-out palm. Her heart hurt more than her bones did. She had worked there for 22 years, and today she had to do something she never thought she would: write the final closure notice. "We can't feed them after this weekend," she whispered to herself. Her voice cracked. "We can't even keep the lights on." She folded the paper and placed it in her drawer. She would tell the children tomorrow. Maybe she'd wait till after breakfast. But something strange happened that evening. Black motorcycles stopped outside the gate, the engine cut off with a deep hum. No one noticed it at first. The children were watching an old DVD on a small TV, and the rain masked the sound. But then a soft knock came at the gate. It wasn't loud or urgent, just gentle and curious. "Monsieur?" Lena opened the door with a tired face and tired eyes. She saw a man in a soaked black jacket, his hair dripping wet, his boots muddy from walking across the uneven sidewalk. He looked up at her. "Hi," he said softly. "I heard you're closing this place." She blinked at him. "Who are you?" He gave a small smile. "My name is Keanu." It took her a few moments to register. Keanu Reeves. Yes, it was him. She had seen him in movies. So had the children. But why was he here at their gate on a rainy Friday evening? "Come in," she said, stepping aside slowly. He walked in, brushing off the rain but not really minding it. He looked around the hallway. He saw the old photographs on the walls, the faded paint, the tiny shoes neatly lined by the entrance. It wasn't the kind of place you'd expect a Hollywood actor to visit. And yet, he looked as if he belonged there. "Someone sent me a letter," he explained. "They said this place needs help." "We've needed help for years," she said, her voice breaking. He turned to her. "Then why hasn't anyone come?" "Because they don't see us," she replied. Keanu didn't speak right away. Instead, he walked into the main room where the kids were watching the TV. They didn't notice him at first. He sat down quietly on the floor beside a boy with a missing front tooth and a girl who kept hugging her teddy bear. "What are you watching?" he asked gently. The boy turned, eyes wide. "Whoa, you look like John Wick." The other kids turned, too, and slowly smiles broke across their faces. They weren't afraid. They didn't scream or jump. They simply smiled, as if their favorite superhero had just walked into their living room. And in a way, he had, after dinner, Keanu sat with Miss Lena in the kitchen. She poured him tea even though there was only one bag left. He insisted she take it, but she refused. "It's been running since 1952, she said. "My mother used to work here too. Now it's falling apart. The city cut funding. Donations stopped. The world moved on." "But you didn't," he said. Quietly, she looked down. "I couldn't." Keanu leaned forward. "What if I buy this place?" She froze. "I don't mean just save it from closing," he continued. "I mean rebuild it, fix every wall, replace the beds, bring in teachers, doctors, give these kids a place where they feel safe, where they know they matter." Tears filled her eyes. "You would do that?" "I'm not here to make a show of it," he said. "I'm here because someone once helped me when I was a child. And now it's my turn." The next morning, the city inspector arrived to finalize the closure. He stepped out of his car expecting silence and locked doors. Instead, he found Keanu Reeves helping a group of children clean up the front lawn. The inspector looked confused. "Sir, what's going on here?" Keanu stood up, wiping dirt from his hands. "This place is no longer shutting down." "And who says that?" "I just bought it." News spread fast. Reporters arrived. Cameras showed up. People whispered on sidewalks. The city's oldest orphanage was not only saved, it was about to be transformed. But not everyone was happy. A private developer who had been waiting for the land watched the news with a clenched jaw. He had made an offer weeks ago, cheap, quiet, and unnoticed. He wanted to build luxury apartments on the land. Now that plan was falling apart. He picked up his phone. Find out what that actor wants, offer him double, triple. Everyone has a price. But Keanu wasn't interested in price. He was building something the world had forgotten about. A home made not of bricks, but of love. That night, as the children slept, Keanu walked the halls with a flashlight. He paused at each room. He saw old drawings taped to walls, broken toys with names written on them, and stories written in crayon and hope. He whispered to himself, "This matters." Outside, the rain finally stopped, and for the first time in years, the orphanage roof didn't leak. Whispers in the walls. The sun rose gently over the quiet neighborhood. For the first time in many months, the halls of Sunrise Children's home felt warm, not because the heater had finally started working, but because there was a feeling of hope moving through the walls. Keanu Reeves stood outside with a cup of warm tea, watching the children chase each other across the dew-covered yard. Their laughter was light, bright, and free. It was the kind of sound that belonged in every child's life, but had been missing from this place for too long. Inside, Miss Lena was still struggling to believe what had happened. One moment, she was preparing to close the orphanage forever, and the next, Hollywood's most humble star had not only saved it, but was now walking through every room with a notebook in his hand, asking questions, listening, writing things down himself. He didn't send assistants. He didn't ask for cameras. He asked for the children's names, and he remembered them. By late morning, the first truck arrived. It carried tools, paint, ladders, and wood. The workers looked around in disbelief. "This place is still standing," one of them whispered. "It won't be for long," said another. "We're rebuilding it, from the ground up." Keanu met them at the front steps. He shook hands with each person, looked them in the eyes, and thanked them personally. "Don't treat this like any other job," he said. "We're not fixing walls. We're building childhoods." The renovations began that afternoon, but while the outside was being stripped, something strange happened inside. A little girl named Mia, barely 6 years old, stood frozen at the edge of her room. She held a paper in her hand. A drawing. It was bent and smudged from years of being held too tightly. Keanu walked in and crouched beside her. "Hey," he said softly. "Can I see what you've got there?" Mia looked at him unsure. Her eyes were wide and old for her age. "It's a picture of my mom," she whispered. "I don't want it to get thrown away." Keanu took the paper, gently. The drawing was simple. Stick figures. A smiling woman with curly hair holding hands with a little girl. "This is beautiful," he said, "and it's not going anywhere." He folded it carefully and put it in a plastic cover he pulled from his backpack. Then he handed it back to her. "Safe now." Mia blinked. "Do you keep drawings too?" He smiled. "Yes. One from my sister when we were kids. I keep it in my wallet." She finally smiled back. It was small but real. By evening, the children helped pack their things into boxes. They were going to stay at a temporary shelter just 2 blocks away while the building was remodeled. Keanu made sure it was cozy, clean, and had new beds waiting. "Only, for a little while," he promised, "you'll come back to something magical." But not everyone believed it. Leo, a 12-year-old boy with sharp eyes and quiet anger, didn't say a word during the move. He didn't pack his things. He just sat on the front steps with crossed arms. Keanu sat beside him. "You don't trust me," he said. Leo looked away. "People always leave." "I used to feel that way too," Keanu replied. "When I was a kid, I got moved around a lot. Never unpacked my bags, but someone showed me it's okay to hope again." Leo scoffed. "How do I know you're not acting?" Keanu paused. Then he took off his black cap and handed it to Leo. You don't, he said simply. But maybe, just maybe, you'll want to see what comes next. Leo stared at the cap. It was signed on the inside with a small note. Keep going, even if no one claps. He didn't say thank you. He didn't have to. That night, after the children were settled in the shelter, Keanu stayed behind at the orphanage site. He met with contractors under dim lights. They reviewed the plans again. I want more than just new paint, he told them. I want a music room, an art studio, a quiet garden with benches. Something these kids have never had but always deserved. The contractor scratched his head. Mr. Reeves, that'll cost more than your original estimate. Keanu took out his checkbook, then raised the estimate. The man looked stunned. Why are you doing this? Keanu gave a tired smile. Because I know what it's like to feel invisible. Across town, a man in a tall building watched a news report. Keanu Reeves saves orphanage, the anchor said, smiling. The man muted the screen. He was the developer who had planned to buy the land. Now his plans were ruined. Get me that inspector, he growled. There's got to be something in the building code, something we can use. His assistant nodded and left. The man leaned back in his chair. You may be a hero to them, he muttered. But I know how this city works. The next morning, Keanu returned to the shelter with breakfast. Pancakes, fresh fruit, hot chocolate. The kids lit up when they saw him. You made this? One asked. No, Keanu laughed. But I helped. The breakfast was the kind of meal they hadn't had in years. Afterward, Keanu gathered them in a circle. I need your help, he said. We're designing your new home, and I want you to tell me what you've always dreamed of. Hands shot. Up. A reading corner. Bunk beds that don't squeak. A door that locks. Windows that don't leak. Keanu listened to every request. He wrote it all down. Nothing was too small. Okay, he said. Let's build something beautiful. But trouble was already brewing. Later that day, a building inspector returned to the site with an official notice in hand. He walked up to the gate, tapped the metal frame, and pinned a red sign. Construction temporarily halted. Pending review. Keanu's contractor called him right away. We've got a problem, he said. Someone filed a complaint. We need to shut down work until it's reviewed. Keanu didn't react with anger. Instead, he stood still for a moment. Then he walked up to the gate and removed the red sign. He called his lawyer. I need a full review of this complaint. And I need it fast. The lawyer got to work immediately. Meanwhile, the kids didn't know the renovation had been paused. They were busy drawing pictures of the future. Some drew tree houses. Others drew slides going from their room to the backyard. And one boy drew a big hand, holding a small one with the words, You make me feel safe. Keanu kept that one in his notebook. He didn't say anything about the complaint. Not yet, because he believed in something powerful. If you build with love, no one can tear it down. But the real storm was only beginning. Red tape and red hearts. The sky above Los Angeles turned heavy again, as if the clouds had been listening. Rain was coming, and with it a storm no one saw on the radar. Keanu Reeves sat in a quiet room of the shelter, looking over sketches the kids had drawn for their future home. There was a playground shaped like a spaceship, a rainbow mural, even a little cinema room with beanbags and a popcorn machine. Their dreams were bold and innocent, something this world needed more of. But Keanu's phone buzzed, and just like that, the joy in his eyes dimmed. They're calling an emergency hearing, said his lawyer on the other end. They're saying the foundation is too old to support renovation. They're questioning your legal transfer of ownership. Keanu closed his eyes for a moment. Who filed the complaint? A company called Garrison Estate Holdings. They were eyeing the land before you stepped in. Keanu sighed. And now they're trying to use the system to take it back. Yes, the lawyer replied, but we still have time. That evening, Keanu went to the shelter to talk to Miss Lena. She sat on the floor in the corner of the common room, folding socks for the children. Her hands moved slowly, her mind clearly somewhere else. You look tired, he said gently, sitting beside her. I've seen this before, she said. People try to help, then the system finds a way to stop them. Not this time, Keanu replied. Not if I can help it. She turned to him, her eyes soft but serious. You've already done more than anyone else ever did. But these people, these developers, they know the city. They know the loopholes. So do we, Keanu said. And we've got something stronger than them? What? Truth and love. Miss Lena smiled. A small one, but it stayed. At the city hall hearing the next morning, Keanu walked in quietly, dressed simply, no press, no drama. He brought one thing with him, his notebook. The developer, Mr. Garrison, sat across the room with two lawyers. He smirked when Keanu entered. The city official began reading the complaint. You are accused of unlawful renovation, bypassing historic code requirements, and using funds that may not be registered through city channels. Keanu stood calmly. I understand the concern, but I have full documentation. I bought the property legally. I've paid for the renovation using my personal funds, and every child in that home has signed permission from the state to remain under our care during transition. He opened his notebook and began reading. This is from Mia, age 6. I want to sleep in a room that doesn't have bugs on the ceiling. This one's from Elijah, age 9. Can we have locks on our bathroom doors so no one barges in when we cry? And from Grace, age 10. I just want a window where the rain doesn't come in. He paused, looked around. I'm not building a mansion. I'm not opening a hotel. I'm building a home. And if red tape stands between a child and a safe place to sleep, then maybe it's time we change the tape. There was silence in the room. Even Mr. Garrison didn't smirk this time. The city officials agreed to pause the shutdown order for 72 hours while they reviewed the documents. It wasn't a win yet, but it wasn't a loss either. Keanu walked out of City Hall into the cold wind. Cameras had started to gather. Someone snapped a photo of him holding the children's drawings close to his chest. It went viral that night. Keanu Reeves fights for orphanage with notebook full of dreams, the headline read. People started paying attention. By the end of the week, something unexpected happened. Packages started arriving at the shelter. Boxes of toys, clothes, books, and blankets came from across the country. Some with notes. I saw the story. My mom grew up in an orphanage. Thanks, you. I can't do much, but here's what I can give. Bless you for reminding us what matters. Keanu stood in the shelter hallway, surrounded by boxes and children peeking out with excitement. Miss Lena handed him a card that had no return address. Inside were 4 words. Build the dream, John Wick. He laughed. Really laughed. And the kids laughed with him. But Mr. Garrison wasn't finished. He filed a second complaint, this time to the zoning department. He claimed that the area was no longer fit for residential services and demanded the land be reclassified as commercial. If approved, it would end everything. Keanu's lawyer called in a panic. This is big. It means court. Weeks of hearings. Keanu nodded. Then we fight. You'll need character witnesses, emotional testimony, legal experts. Keanu closed his eyes. I've got 12 witnesses, he said softly. They're all under 12. The next day, Keanu held a small press conference outside the shelter. Not for publicity, but to let the world know what was happening. He didn't use fancy words. He didn't prepare a speech. He stood in front of the microphones and said, We teach kids to dream, but sometimes we forget to protect the places where those dreams begin. I'm asking the city not to take that away. He stepped back, and to everyone's surprise, Mia walked up beside him. She held a drawing in her hand. This is my new room, she said to the reporters. I drew stars on the ceiling. Please, don't take it away. That clip went everywhere. By midnight, the city's office had received over 100,000 emails asking them to support Keanu's orphanage project. The hashtag #BuildTheStarRoom trended #1 for 2 straight days. But it wasn't just the internet watching. Mr. Garrison saw it too, and now he was angry. If he thinks he can beat me with crayons and sympathy, he said to his assistant, he's got another thing coming. He picked up his phone. Dig into his plans. Find a weakness. A permit error, a donation source, anything. But there was nothing to dig. Because Keanu Reeves wasn't building a brand, he was building love. By the end of the week, the city sent a letter. A hearing was scheduled. Final decision would be made in 10 days. Until then, construction must remain paused. Keanu stood alone at the gate of the orphanage that night. The building behind him was half torn down. Wires hung from walls. Floors were cracked. The rain had returned, and it slipped through holes in the roof like silent tears. He placed his hand on the old doorframe. "Just hold on a little longer," he whispered. Behind him, Leo appeared. He had his backpack on and held out the black cap Keanu had given him earlier. "You might need this," Leo said, "for court." Keanu took it, smiled, and put it back on. "Thank you, Leo," the boy shrugged. "Don't lose, okay?" Keanu nodded. "I won't." The hearing of Hearts, the city courthouse, stood tall and cold that morning, its stone pillars soaked in the early rain. People hurried by with umbrellas and coffee cups, but a strange hush filled the air near courtroom 3. Something different was happening inside. A story that didn't feel like a court case, but more like a battle for something deeper. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Journalists, lawyers, city officials, and even curious citizens filled the benches. Word had spread fast. The fight for Sunrise Children's Home had become a symbol of kindness, of resistance, of the fight against quiet cruelty hidden behind legal walls. Keanu Reeves sat near the front in a black shirt, worn jeans, and a notebook resting gently in his lap. He didn't have a legal team dressed in suits, just his one loyal lawyer and a silent group of children sitting beside him, their feet barely touching the floor. Across from them, Mr. Garrison sat with sharp eyes and a sharper suit. His lawyers flipped pages, ready to fire off every rule they had memorized. To them, this was just business, but for Keanu, this was home. The judge, an older woman with gray hair pulled into a tight bun, entered the room and looked around. She had heard whispers about this case for weeks now. She didn't usually care for drama, but even she had seen the clip of little Mia holding her star drawing, and she had felt something stir in her chest. "We are here today," she said calmly, "to determine whether the land once used as an orphanage may continue to be used as such under its current renovation plans, or if it must be reclassified and returned to public auction." Mr. Garrison's lawyer stood up first. "Your Honor, this is a matter of zoning law, not emotion. The land sits in a now commercial area. The foundation is unstable. The current owner, Mr. Reeves, has bypassed several legal protocols." Keanu didn't interrupt. He waited. "Our client seeks to protect the city's growth," the lawyer said, "not halt it with charity nostalgia." The judge raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Then it was Keanu's turn. He stood, slowly, without notes. His voice was quiet, but it carried. "Your Honor," he said, "I won't argue codes. I trust the city to check my papers. I trust my team to follow every step properly." He opened his notebook and flipped to a page. "But what I do want to share is why this land matters." He turned slightly, speaking not just to the judge, but to everyone in the room. "When I first walked through the orphanage, the ceiling was leaking, the floors were cracked, and there were holes in the windows. But the kids, they still smiled. They still drew pictures. They still believed someone would come." He looked down at Mia sitting in the front row, holding her bear tight. I couldn't walk away. Then he nodded toward the judge. "With your permission, the children would like to speak too." The judge looked hesitant. "We don't usually—" But then she saw Leo stand up. Tall for his age, nervous, but brave. "Go ahead," she said. Leo, "Walk to the front. I've lived in 3 shelters," he said, voice cracking, "and 2 group homes. But this one felt different." He held up a photo. It showed him with Keanu, planting a small flower by the fence. They both wore muddy boots. "This isn't about beds or bricks. It's about not feeling like trash. This place makes you feel human again." He stepped back. Next came Grace. "I'm 10, she said softly, "and I have nightmares. But Miss Lena lets me sleep in her room sometimes when I get scared. And Mr. Keanu gave me headphones that play ocean sounds. And now, I don't wake up crying anymore. Each child who stood shared something small, something personal, something real. The courtroom was silent. Even the people from Mr. Garrison's side lowered their heads, and when Mia walked up holding her drawing of the star room, she didn't speak. She simply showed the judge her picture, and the courtroom felt like it was holding its breath. After, the children sat down. Keanu's lawyer stood and handed over all paperwork. Tax reports, renovation permits, transfer of ownership, every document clean and clear. "We did not bypass anything," she said, "and we are prepared to continue under the city's supervision." The judge took it all and asked for a recess to review. The room emptied slowly, buzzing with emotion. Outside the courtroom, Keanu sat quietly on the steps, looking up at the sky. The rain had stopped. Miss Lena sat beside him. "How do you feel?" she asked. He gave a tired smile. "Like a kid hoping someone shows up at his school play." She chuckled softly. "You did good. They all did." Then Leo walked over with a folded paper. "You might want this," he said, handing it to Keanu. It was a list. "Things I want in the new place, by everyone. Swings pancakes every Sunday. No yelling at dog music class, a roof that doesn't drip big. Hugs, a secret reading spot, someone who remembers our birthdays." Peace. Keanu read it slowly. He nodded. "We'll build all of it." An hour later, the courtroom was full again. The judge entered quietly. She didn't smile, didn't blink much. She simply looked at the papers before her and then up at the room. "This case is unique," she said. "It is not just about land, but about life. Not just about law, but about love." She took a deep breath. "The renovation plans are valid. The ownership legal. The permits correct." She paused. "And the children, deserving." Then, finally, she said the words everyone had been waiting for. "The court sees no legal reason to stop the project. Sunrise Children's Home may proceed." Room exploded in quiet cheers. Hugs, tears. Even the judge's eyes softened. Keanu didn't raise his fists. He simply closed his notebook, stood, and turned to the kids. "We're going home," he said. Outside, reporters crowded the steps. "Keanu, how does it feel to win?" He smiled but shook his head. "It's not about winning," he said. "It's about not giving up on the people who matter most." A reporter asked, "What will you build first?" He looked down at Mia, who was holding her drawing again. He said softly, "A star room." But behind closed doors, Mr. Garrison wasn't finished. He watched the celebration from his office, jaw tight, fingers twitching. "He got lucky," he muttered. "This isn't over." He picked up his phone again. If the courts won't stop him, then maybe someone else will. He dialed a number and spoke into the phone. "I want eyes on him. Find something. Anything. Break the foundation if you have to." He hung up. Because in the shadows, greed doesn't sleep, but neither does love. Cracks beneath the floor, Sunrise Children's Home was finally breathing again. The hammering of nails, the buzz of saws, and the laughter of children returned to the site like music after years of silence. Workers moved with purpose, repainting old walls, strengthening floors, and installing windows that actually sealed tight. Keanu Reeves walked among them every day, not as a celebrity, but as a builder, a helper, a silent anchor. He carried wood. He swept dust. He picked up screws from the dirt and offered juice boxes to tired workers. People expected him to be distant, guarded, above it all. But instead, he was in it. Dirty jeans, scraped knuckles, and all. The kids came by after school, every day. They brought cookies and crayons, drawing new ideas for their dream rooms. Miss Lena smiled more now. The lines on her face softened. Her hope was returning. But while the walls of the orphanage rose stronger each day, trouble was digging quietly beneath them. One afternoon, as Keanu helped lift a wooden beam into place, the lead contractor ran up from the basement, panic on his face. "Keanu, we've got a serious problem." Keanu dropped his tool and followed. They went down the narrow steps into the basement, where old stone and dirt met modern construction. The foreman pointed at a wide crack in the foundation. "One, That hadn't been there last week. This wasn't on the inspection, he said. Someone tampered with it. Keanu frowned. How? The man hesitated. We found pieces of an old jackhammer nearby. It looks like someone tried to weaken the structure. Keanu's jaw tightened. Someone broke in and damaged the foundation. That's not the worst part, the foreman added. If it collapses, the whole north wing could fall with it. Keanu didn't speak right away. He looked around, then knelt beside the crack and placed his hand on the ground. Someone was trying to destroy everything from the inside. They sealed off the area immediately and brought in a structural engineer. Hours later, she confirmed it. Deliberate damage. I'll need to bring in a specialist, she said. But it's repairable, just expensive. Keanu stood silently. We'll fix it, he said. We always fix it. That night, Keanu called a private investigator. Not because he wanted revenge, but because the children deserved protection. Someone broke in during construction, Keanu told him. I don't need drama, just the truth. The investigator nodded. I'll start tonight. Back at the shelter, Miss Lena noticed something in Leo's hands, a broken camera. He said he found it buried near the fence line of the orphanage while walking past the construction site. Keanu looked at it closely. The memory card was still inside. They loaded it into a computer. There were 2 videos. The first was shaky, dark. It showed a figure in a black hoodie crouched near the orphanage wall at night, using heavy tools, looking over their shoulder. The second video was from the next night. Same person, same spot. But halfway through, the camera tipped over as if dropped suddenly and the video ended. This is enough proof, Miss Lena whispered. Keanu nodded. Now we know what they're willing to do. The investigator confirmed it within 24 hours. Fingerprints on the broken jackhammer matched an employee of Garrison Estate Holdings, a demolition worker recently paid under the table. Keanu's lawyer filed a police report the next morning. Charges were coming. Meanwhile, the city, already touched by the story of the orphanage, responded fast. Inspectors returned, saw the damage, and confirmed the sabotage. The mayor herself made a statement. If anyone thinks they can harm a project built on love and trust, they are mistaken. We will protect this effort and those behind it. Support poured in. Donations tripled overnight. But Keanu didn't smile. He stood in the middle of the construction site that afternoon, hands on his hips, eyes fixed on the weak foundation wall. They wanted to break us from below, he said softly. So now we build even stronger. He brought in a specialized team, experts in historic restorations and earthquake-safe architecture. Within 3 days, they designed a new foundation, plan that was safer, stronger, and future-proof. It would cost more. But Keanu didn't blink. Do it. That night, as he walked the perimeter of the site, he noticed someone waiting by the fence. It was Mr. Garrison. You're stubborn, the man said, stepping forward. Most people would have taken a payout by now. Keanu didn't answer. You're wasting time, Garrison sneered. You could have made millions. Keanu looked him in the eyes. You could have too. In goodness. Garrison laughed. No one remembers good men. Keanu replied quietly. The kids do. And then he walked away. On the weekend, the children returned to paint murals on the inside of the new walls. Big, bright colors filled the rooms. Galaxies, forests, oceans, skies full of flying books and open arms. Leo painted a lion. Mia painted stars again, this time with glowing paint. Keanu stood by the doorway watching them. One of the workers leaned over and said, You didn't just save a building, man. You saved the story. Keanu smiled. No, they're writing it. I'm just holding the pen sometimes. A few days later, Mr. Garrison was arrested. The news hit every screen. Developer arrested for sabotage of children's shelter project hiss. Company stocks dropped overnight. City contracts were canceled. No one clapped when he was escorted out of his office, and while he disappeared from the headlines within a week, Keanu's project continued to rise. But something else happened too. A girl named Amina arrived at the shelter. She was 9, quiet, and didn't speak for the first 2 days. She had been bounced from foster home to foster home. No one knew much, just that she had a small backpack and eyes that saw too much. On her 3rd day, she saw Keanu sitting outside, drawing with chalk. She walked up silent. He looked up, smiled gently. "Want to help?" She nodded. She drew a house, then a big sun above it, then 4 stick figures, and finally, a dog. Keanu looked at the last figure. "That your dog?" Amina shook her head. "Not yet." He smiled. "We'll get one." And that was the first time she smiled back. The foundation was repaired. The walls stood stronger. The rooms were brighter. And the children, for the first time in their lives, had something no court could give, no money could buy, a real home. But the best was still to come, because Keanu had one last surprise, a gift no one expected, and it would change everything. The light within the grand opening day came like a slow sunrise, soft, warm, and filled with quiet joy. Sunrise Children's Home was no longer just standing. It was glowing. From the street, the building looked brand new. The cracked windows were gone, replaced by wide, shining glass that let sunlight pour into every room. The old crooked sign had been replaced with one carved by hand, Sunrise Home, where dreams wake up. Flowers bloomed along the fence line. The playground shined with new paint. And behind the orphanage, the once empty garden had transformed into a magical place with fruit trees, soft benches, a fountain, and a little winding path made of colored tiles, each painted by a child. Inside, the laughter echoed off freshly painted walls. Bunk beds with fluffy pillows, bookshelves filled with new stories, art on every corner, warm lighting, soft rugs, and in the middle of it all, Keanu Reeves, sitting on the floor helping a 6-year-old girl put together a dinosaur puzzle. He had been there every day since the court victory, not to be seen, but to see. As families, city officials, and volunteers arrived for the ceremony, the children led them around proudly. Leo showed them the music room. Grace brought them to the reading cove. Amina pointed out the small studio where she painted stars on the ceiling. And then, the moment everyone had waited for, the unveiling of the star room. The doors opened slowly. Gasps filled the hallway. Inside, soft lights shaped like stars lit the ceiling. Walls were painted like galaxies. The floor had a glow-in-the-dark path shaped like a comet trail, leading to a round bed shaped like the moon. This room wasn't just for sleep. It was for healing. It was for dreaming. And Mia, tiny, quiet Mia, stood in the middle, her eyes wide. "Is it real?" she whispered. Keanu walked in, knelt beside her and whispered, "It's yours." Her smile lit up the entire room. After the tour, everyone gathered in the garden under a white tent. The mayor gave a speech. The crowd clapped. The news cameras rolled. But it was Keanu's words that stopped everyone still. He stood at the front holding nothing. No speech, no paper. Just a folded piece of paper in his pocket. A list written by children. "I've played heroes," he began. "But this place, this is where the real heroes are." He gestured to the children behind him. They survived things most of us couldn't imagine. Yet they smile, they share, they create, they believe. He paused. "The world is full of noise, but these kids, they showed me something quieter, something stronger." He pulled out the list and read it slowly. No yelling. A roof that doesn't drip. Someone who remembers our birthdays. Peace. He looked up. We built all of it. Because love should not be rare. It should be everywhere. There was silence and then loud applause. Tears flowed. But Keanu's eyes stayed gentle, grounded, as if he wasn't looking for thanks, but for change. That night, after the ceremony ended and the lights dimmed, the children sat outside with him around a small fire pit, roasting marshmallows, telling stories. Amina snuggled beside him, wrapped in a fuzzy blanket. Leo leaned over. "You said there was one more surprise." Keanu smiled. There is. He whistled. From the back gate came a small, bouncy puppy with soft brown fur and ears too big for his head. He barked once, then clumsily ran into the kid's arms. Amina gasped. He's real. Keanu nodded. He's all yours. They named him Rocket, because he never stopped zooming around. Weeks passed. The orphanage became a living story. News crews visited, but only briefly. Keanu always asked them to stay outside. He said, "This is a home, not a headline." But stories still spread, because goodness travels quietly. A school offered scholarships. A retired chef came every weekend to teach cooking classes. A local artist donated murals. And a music teacher volunteered 3 times a week, simply saying, "Someone saved me once. I want to pass it on." One day, months later, Leo pulled Keanu aside. "Can I ask you something?" Keanu nodded. "Why did you come? Like, really?" Keanu looked out at the sunset. His voice was soft. "When I was young, I moved a lot. I felt forgotten. Sometimes, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. But one day, someone believed in me. They didn't ask for anything, they just showed up." He turned to Leo. "I promised myself that when I could, I'd show up for someone else." Leo looked down. "Well, you did." Keanu reached into his pocket and handed Leo the list again. "I didn't just build this place for you. You built it with me." On a quiet Sunday morning, Keanu stood alone outside Sunrise home. The sun peeked through the trees. The wind was soft. He watched as Maya helped Rocket chase butterflies, as Amina helped a younger boy zip up his jacket, as Grace read aloud to 2 toddlers on a bench. The world still had noise, still had darkness, but here, there was light. The kind of light that didn't just shine, it healed. And Keanu knew. The real home wasn't just made of walls and bricks, it was made of moments. Made of names remembered, made of hands held, and above all, it was made of love.